I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, November the 22nd, brought to you in part by Norphenacol by Norbrook. Get to the bottom of BRD fast. Florphenacol, the active ingredient in norphenacol, reaches therapeutic blood levels in the lungs within 30 minutes of being administered. For more information, go to norbrook.com. Also, Unionville Livestock Markets and Creston Livestock Markets in north central Missouri and south central Iowa there. Unionville Livestock Market is having their big Thanksgiving special this Tuesday the 26th at 10:30 in the morning. Expecting around 2,500 head, and I mean some of the nicest consignments that they get all year long. Of course, including another big string of those Rockin' R or Smokin' R yearlings from Lucerne, Missouri. Got 310 of them coming. They'll weigh from 8.5 to 875. And then a lot of 500 to 700 pound fancy home raised calves. Literally over 30 different good sized consignments of fancy home raised calves. Most of them weighing between 500 and 700 pounds, and a high percentage of them are going to be weaned. They will all have had their shots, but you don't want to miss that sale if you want some top quality cattle, guys. They got some good feeding calves on there. They got several deals of yearlings. They've got some turnout type calves, but not going to be a lot of cattle moving this coming week because of Thanksgiving. And you want to get in on those, and you might sneak in there and get some bought after some of the bigger outfits have kind of shut down for the week. But be sure and check out Unionville Livestock Market on Tuesday for their Thanksgiving feeder special on DVAuction.com. Now, just north of there in Creston, Iowa, Creston Livestock Market, their next big all vaccinated calf and yearling special is going to be Wednesday, December the 4th. So be thinking about that. Maybe next month. We keep waiting for the cattle on feed report to be significantly lighter than a year ago, but it never seems to do that. They've got the November 1st inventory set at 99.9% of a year ago. Exactly the same. We know we've got tighter supplies all the time, but you know, we keep looking for lower inventories, or at least lower placements. There's fewer calves around. I mean, I've told you guys many times recently that we've got the smallest calf crop in 2024 than we've had in 3 generations. So I don't understand why we keep finding all these cattle everywhere. They just keep showing up in the numbers, but they're not showing up at the sales. Everybody will tell you that calf runs have been light. Now, we've seen some decent runs. We've seen some big receipts places here and there, but especially in the northern plains, you know, where they did have some big runs there for 1 or 2 weeks, but where they would continue to have 6,000 to 8,000 head, they were having more like 3,000 to 4,000 head, and similar type percentages down in the Midwest and even in the southern plains. But they are keeping some heifers back, so that's part of the reason that the receipts are that much lighter. We are definitely starting to keep heifers back. Now, they could show back up as yearlings, you know, later on, like they did last year. Whenever we saw them keep the fancy light calves back, we thought they were going to grow them and breed them and sell them as bred heifers, or keep them and calve them out themselves. But what a lot of them did was they just made grass yearlings out of them because the market was so good they couldn't resist selling them. But they've had a couple of good years here, and it'll be good on the steers that they sold. If people want to stay in business, they're going to have to keep some heifers back here, and I think we are going to see. I don't know how significant it will be because the slaughter cow market has been so good for the last year or so that people have really been culling deep on their weigh-up cows or on their out cows. And so, you know, they need to keep a lot of heifers back to kind of make up for that too. But it's quite a different deal whenever when we're culling our cows really hard, haven't been keeping any heifers back. But one reason that our inventories on feed stay so high is because we're feeding cattle so much longer. But yeah, that makes an impact on the get-go, but once we catch up with that, it shouldn't anymore. We've been making these cattle big for the last 4 years or so, ever since COVID, when we got backed up. And now we're taking them bigger than we ever have, but not significantly bigger. But yeah, maybe we are. I don't know. Our actual dressed steer carcass weight came back for the week ending November the 9th and had our average dressed steer carcass weight at 960 pounds, back up to the all-time heaviest it's ever been, and up 2 pounds from the previous report. Maybe we are making them that big, but you know, like I said, after you've been doing that for so long, it should be just kind of second nature that you're doing that, and it shouldn't impact your numbers that much. It's kind of like everybody complaining, and they do in the comments on this report, talking about, oh, those beef on dairy cattle, those darn beef on dairies. Man, they're really messing things up here. You know, we should be lighter on numbers, but we got all these beef on dairy cattle. Okay, people, the dairy cows that have those beef on dairy calves, they've only ever had one calf a year. They had one calf a year when they were making those big gangly Holsteins that we don't see that much of anymore. But just because they're bred to the really fancy Angus straws of the best bulls that there are out there, they're still having one calf a year. Yes, we are running them through the system a whole lot faster than we were when we were taking those poor converting straighter Holsteins all the way to slaughter. And we, like I said, we don't see those much anymore. Yeah, we are taking them through the system a lot faster, but once we've taken them through the system faster one time, it should catch up. It's not going to be a prolonged effect. And yeah, they are coming into a higher quality market that is affecting maybe our fed steers and heifers more than the old-time Holsteins did. The old-time Holsteins kind of had their own market in the upper Midwest. And if you were ever up in the Midwest and up high, you know, around the Twin Cities and places like that, and you get a steak, you know, it'd have a bone in it like your forearm, and you realize you were eating something that was a little bit different. It was that Holstein beef that they used to have a whole lot more of, and they used to slaughter them in the upper Midwest more, but we just don't see that many of them anymore, because nobody keeps those things around, because they just they don't convert nearly as well at cattle that have a higher percentage of beef in them. But let's look at the rest of your analyst guess for the cattle and feed report that comes out today, 2 o'clock Central. I told you that your November 1st inventories, they've got them pegged at 99.9%. So if it comes in less than that, that's going to be bullish. If it comes in more than that, it's going to be bearish. Your placements in October, that surprised me a little bit. It's hard for me to see how they're going to be much bigger, but they got them at 103.3, so 3.3% bigger than the same report a year ago. And I was like, man, we're just taking everything to wheat and all that. But remember, we didn't have any rain until November, basically. Maybe some late October there, but we really didn't. We wouldn't have got enough to make a big difference on our placements in October. But man, for the last 3-4 weeks, it's just been raining like crazy and snowing, and we've had a lot of moisture. But your marketings in October, they've got those cranked way up. Of course, they know what they are. They're reported all the time, and they rarely ever miss those, but they've got those at 105.1. So, you know, I have no reason to believe that it won't be just like what they said, and they're getting pretty good at guesstimating this report. Why we have to have a drum roll and pull the curtain back, you know, once a month on a Friday afternoon and see how bad they missed it. I don't know. I don't understand that, why we have to do that. Why can't they just give us the information as it becomes available to them and let us absorb it like that? But don't forget about Livestock Risk Services. They are your LRP specialists with Dakota Moss there in Oklahoma City at the Stockyards Exchange building there. And then all these other agents that work with him, and all of them are very good. They're all very good. Check them all out. Any of them that you feel comfortable with, one that may be closer to you. And these coverage price levels, you need to check them out. They've been improving here for the last week or so, and maybe more than what you thought. You might look in there and see that you can get a nice coverage price there, see what it's going to cost to get it done. Get a hold of them, get your application filled out, so whenever you do get ready to pull the plug, all you have to do is call and tell them to do it. You don't have to go through the whole rigmarole there. But don't forget, will be no LRPs written here today on Friday because the new rule from USDA said that you can't write an LRP on cattle on feed day. So this is too volatile for that day. So I have to wait till Monday to get that done. I want to talk to you a little bit about Crawford Livestock Market in Crawford, Nebraska. They've been having big sales, and their runs are starting to tail off a little bit, the big calf runs. But here today on Friday, they've got a unique sale that you need to check out. They've got about 1,000 feeders. Rich Robertson told me that he does have one really fancy string of yearlings. One iron deal be 300 big black yearling feeder steers weighing from 8.5 to 9.25, and he said they are extra special. And so check those out. That'll make up a pretty good portion of those 1,000 feeders. They're going to have probably 900 head of weigh-ups, and you're thinking, well, that's not going to interest me that much. But also, they've got their Longhorn and Buffalo sale here today on Friday. You need to check that out. He said there's about 90 head of purebred Longhorns. They're going to be sold in Crawford Livestock Market in Crawford, Nebraska today, and about 80 head of buffalo or bison calves, or maybe light yearlings there to sell. So if you're interested in something like that or just want to watch it, check it out. Get on DVAuction.com. If you want to get approved, you better get a hold of Alicia before the sale, or several minutes or hours before you want to start bidding, so she can check you out and get you approved to bid. Let's talk about your board. On Thursday, December live cattle futures were down 70 cents at 185.60. February was down 50 cents at 187.42. Your back months were mixed from down 17 cents to up a nickel, but not a big mover again on your live cattle on Thursday. November feeder cattle up 32 cents at 255.12. Branching out ahead of your cash feeder cattle index is not quite a buck, but still out in front of them. January feeder cattle up $1.12 at 253.45, and then your back months on feeder cattle were as little improved as unchanged, and that was your farthest out traded month, which would be a whole year from now, to as much as 85 cents higher. So still gaining some ground on those back months for your coverage spots there for an LRP. Let's talk about your grains. December corn was down 3.5 cents a bushel at 426 3/4. January beans down 12 3/4 cents at 977 3/4. And hard red winter wheat for December down 6 1/4 at 555 1/2. Let's talk about your fat cattle trade brought to you by Legacy Beef Cooperative, guys. You need to check that deal out. But you didn't have much trade on a direct basis. We still have not traded a hoof in the Southern Plains on negotiated cash direct basis. They've just barely been trading enough in the Southern Plains to establish, get enough volume in the weighted averages to use them in their formulas. But didn't have much trade in the Northern Plains yet either. Iowa sold 500 head on Thursday, just 3,900s all for the week. Live prices in Iowa on Thursday, 185 to 186 and 290 dressed. That's within last week's trading range, and not really pushing it, not really dragging it. So I'm still going to say mostly steady in early sales, in light early sales. Nebraska 1,700 head on Thursday and 5,400 for the week so far. Live price at 185 and dress price also at 290 there. But like I said, nothing at all in Kansas or Texas. Did have a fat cattle auction in Kelowna, Iowa on Thursday. About 1,000 head, including the cows and all classes of slaughter cattle there. The good choice fat cattle sold $2.50 to $3 higher, from 185 to 193.50. So that's encouraging. Let's talk about your box beef cutout values. They were higher on Thursday, not a lot, but higher. Choice cuts up 40 cents at 306.79. Selects up 193 at 272.92. Your slaughter, run through the first 4 days of the week, estimated slaughter on cattle of 496,000. That's 13,000 more than the same point the previous week, or a week ago, and you could not really compare against a year ago. So, but they have ramped it up here the last part of this week with some pretty big daily slaughters there. And like I said, your actual slaughter information come back for November the 9th said your dressed steer carcass weight on the average 960 pounds. Huge. Let's talk about what else is going on. Fairpiece is that revolutionary product that is scientifically proven, guys. I've just talked to so many producers and so many friends of mine that are getting along with it so well, getting big strings of calves in from up in the northern plains, bringing them down. The calves are real excited and nervous and won't settle down. And then whenever they run them through the chute, they just squirt that Fairpiece on their muzzle and on their pole. And the next time they go out and look at them, the cattle are just different. And Texas A&M research has concluded that Fairpiece has reduced mortality due to bovine respiratory disease, or BRD, in their tests by as much as 83%. How can you not afford to try that at around $3 a dose, guys? Check them out at fairpiece.com. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DVAuction. Late in the day on Thursday, after your sales had concluded across the country, but based on an 800-pound cash auction steer, real-time index 254.29. That was up 7 cents, but it really hasn't moved for the last 2 days. And your bigger feeder cattle are just settling down because we've hit a wall on our fat cattle. And after 2 weeks of down and kind of trading on the steady weak side this week, we just can't push them anymore. We can push the stocker cattle, but not those going right into the feedlot. But your latest CME cash feeder cattle index, just 2 cents per hundred from that real-time index at 254.27. Talk about your big sales. Farmers and ranchers livestock in Salina, Kansas had 2,600 on Thursday. The calves sold $6 to $9 higher. Feeder heifers were $2 to $5 higher. But the Kansas Federal State Market Reporting called feeder steers $2 to $6 lower, with everything else selling higher. But they just didn't want those feeder steers, supposedly. But a stick-out sale in Salina was 51 of those feeder steers that weighed 820 and bring 265 and a half. What could they have brought last week to be $2 to $6 lower? They don't do a very good job. How about winter livestock in Pratt, Kansas? 2,000 head there. Feeders were not well tested. Calves sold $7 to $12 higher. A stick-out sale in Pratt was 62 steers weighed 840 at 273. That's nearly $20 higher than your index levels and 40 pounds bigger. That's wild. Pratt's not going to have a sale next week. Most of your sales especially those Wednesday, Thursday, Friday sales. Will not be having sales next week. There are several Monday and Tuesday sales that will be operating, so check your schedules. Talk about some individual quotes from all around that were impressive. How about Bluegrass Stockyard South in Stanford, Kentucky? They sell 70 steers, weight 807 at $266.60, standing in the ring in Stanford, Kentucky. Wow. How about Broken Bow Livestock Market in Broken Bow, Nebraska? They sell 90 steer calves, weigh 601 at $313.50. Very impressive. How about Stockman's Livestock Exchange, the East Barn? They had 71 Pee-wee steer calves, weighed 418 at $4.15. Now that was good, but the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Thursday in your Macrison No BS top quote for the day come out of Glasgow, Montana at the Glasgow Stockyards. It was 60. I hadn't seen this big of a bunch of these calves this light. 60 steer calves, Pee-wees, weigh 353 and bring $469.50. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.